Have fun.
Hey everybody, this is Ben from T3 bringing you a top 8 game from the Blackstone Owl Store Championship in Southern California. This is specifically game number 2 in your bracket. On the left we have Gerry playing HB Engineering the Future, and on the right we have Raphael playing Geist. I'm pretty excited about this one. Business first is legal, and that means Tech Trader is going to be seen. That's kind of one of those cards that has many people thinking turned Geist on. So I'm sure we're going to be seeing a little bit of that. And after Gerry just installed and gained a buck, Raph's setting up his board state a little bit, getting a spike out into Fall Guy, probably going to try and hold on to that Fall Guy for a little bit. And Gerry's just going to continue to ice up and protect HQ. I can't quite make it out. It looks like he has a Jackson, an Ash, and a Vitruvius, I believe, in Gerry's hand. So just trying to look for a little bit more ice to get his board state figured out. Raph drawing up pretty aggressively here. I bet you he's, as I mentioned before, looking for those Tech Traders, looking to get his engine online and active. I think this new Geist build that we've seen with Tech Traders, and of course you're going to see a technical writer too, I believe here. Just Geist has so much money now, and criminals have access to those really, really good cards. We see Drive-By in his hand. I'm sure that Levy's going to be played at some point too, since Geist's ability lets him cycle through the decks so quickly. And Gerry, yep, we do see that Jackson on his side, so just installing and drawing up a little bit, gaining a little bit more money. And again, I couldn't quite make out what was in his hand there. But Raph continuing to draw, looking for options. I'm not really sure what he might be looking for. Although Geist's, those Cloud Breakers that he plays in installing the second spike last turn, I believe, those Cloud Breakers need each other to really be beneficial. So I'm not sure. I'm really interested to see if Raph's going to have his suite just based off those Cloud Breakers, or if he's going to have some other more standard breakers, you know, the Corroder and Gordian Blade and the like going in. Probably not Gordian Blade, probably too much influence, but something along those lines. And Gerry installing the new server and getting that drive-by right away. So spending a couple clicks to get rid of the Adonis instead of the drive-by, pretty solid move. That's a card that I don't see criminals playing that often. Drive-by I find very, very effective, especially against the Caprices and the Ashes. No one really expects you to play that card, which is really, really surprising because it's free, 2 clicks, kill an asset, it can kill a Jackson, can kill an Adonis, can kill an Eve. It's really, really good. So probably some more of that in Raph's deck as well, and the same old thing, so the Levy can be discarded without any worries. And Gerry continuing to ice up, build his board state a little bit in hedge fund. So Gerry's playing this one a little bit slower on the left, and he does have a good board state, two ice in front of HQ and R&D, a pile of money. Gerry's sitting on 18 credits right now, so Gerry's in a pretty good spot, especially since Raph doesn't really have any breakers, and that Street Peddler coming out a little bit more and giving Raph some options, some card draw, and money once that, if hopefully that Tech Trader hits the table soon. And yep, so there's a Tech Trader, and now I think is when we're going to start seeing Geist's ability get turned on. Not his ability, but we'll start seeing Raph use that a little bit more often. And Gerry, in the meantime, just installing, gaining more money. I think he's trying to get a scoring server up, or at least start getting it set up. And I'm kind of surprised here, because I think I would expect Gerry to try and rush out an agenda. I feel like if he's seeing Geist and he's seeing these Cloud Breakers, even though Raph does have the Street Peddlers and is starting to get a little bit more options available to him, Gerry has to know that his ice is generally pretty high strength and Geist can click through it, but with the Ash that Gerry has in hand, he could easily create a scoring remote here with just I believe, with one piece of ice and an Ash, and at least force through a Vitruvius or an accelerated beta test, and I'm not sure whether Gerry would want that to fire, but at least having more the ability would be really, really strong, I think, especially if Gerry can find another Jackson and get that on the table ASAP. And Raph does force Gerry to use the Jackson. So that's going to be gone now. I'm curious to see whether Gerry's going to continue to try and fortify up here and gain money, or if he's going to try and make an aggressive play. I would imagine that both of these decks are it's an interesting matchup because both HB and Geist tend to be a little bit slower in the early game. HB doesn't want, if HB can avoid agendas getting stolen before the game gets to like mid-game or the end of the early game, HB's in a really, really good position. And on the opposite side, this Geist build is much the same, except it uses its resources and the breakers and street peddlers to kind of start getting a really big advantage. And Gerry responds to the first drive-by, rezzing that Ash right off the bat. And I'm curious to see if Raph's going to try and get in there, or because Gerry clearly has more money here. So if he can rest that ice and defend the remote, and Raph first click running and seeing an Ichi, which will probably get clicked through here, I have to believe, barring whatever's on those street peddlers. But yeah, anywho, both of these decks have a little bit of setup time in the beginning, and if both of them can avoid any points being scored early on, late game is going to ramp up and become very, very dangerous for both. I believe it's going to be high risk, high reward, especially if Raph is running some multi-access. I definitely expect legworks. I'm curious to see whether it's going to be Maker's Eye or R&D interface. I have a feeling like Maker's Eye, just because it's not, I don't know how often this Geist build is going to run. So Gerry does force Raph to jack out and score out the accelerated beta test. Oh, and missing. He fires it and misses on the cards. That's really, really going to hurt. And Raph, of course, just running archives, hitting, two Eves in there, and okay, so he gets the beta test, and we have a tied game just like that. So that beta test really, really backfired there, and I think that's going to put Gerry in a bad spot moving forward. Those are just free points for Geist, and Raph here is going to install the Zoo, so Raph's starting to be able to put a lot of pressure, and that Zoo does count for the Spike's strength as well. So not taking up MU, but just accounting for a permanent strength boost, plus a little bit more reliability there. So I can expect that Turing probably is actually what's behind that Ichi too. That would be pretty solid. So the Zoo can come in play and be a really, really important piece of Raph's game. And I bet you that was a meta call that he made. The influence hurts a little bit. I'm not sure what else we've seen that uses influence, but using the Zoo just for repeated reliability to put pressure on the remotes, and even the centrals. On centrals, it's even easier. So that was a really solid include there. And I do see that Raph has a siphon. He might be thinking about using that now to force Gerry to go down. And if he can even force Gerry to be poor, it would at least take the risk out of that scoring remote that Gerry just installed last turn. And he does play the siphon, and we see another Ichi. So Gerry's defenses in the first couple turns are really, really robust. Those aren't easy things for the Cloud Suite to break. Although I guess it does just cost a Shiv, I believe. So as long as Raph has 4 breakers out, of course, then the 1 Shiv trashing for the Ichis. But this will put a little bit of limited access on the centrals. And I think Raph is trying to figure out what to do, or did
Trace 4?
Okay, so Raph let the Trace fire, and since he does have 2 Link, he only has to pay 4. Gerry kind of going down, making it so he has no money into the siphon. So I expect that we'll just see Raph break this and take the access, of course.
Stoke from Peddler. Okay.
Oh, okay. So auto scripter too. That was an interesting street peddler. We saw the auto scripter, the crowbar, and the tech trader, and deciding not to go with the tech trader actually, and installing the crowbar off of it. Oh, I see. And then install the second tech trader off the street peddlers. So 2 street peddlers hitting 2 tech traders. Not ideal for Raph, but with the card draw and with getting everything installed here, I think that puts him in a really good spot. He gets the money back from those traces, uses the crowbar to get through the Viper. So interesting to see here that when Raph has the option to use a Cloudbreaker or to use, I should say, Zoo, or one of his breaking and entering B&E suite, he's opting to use the B&E suite first. I'm not sure if Raph just wants to constantly try and build his credit pool and just use those single breakers, but since it does provide him card draw as well as credits, it's probably a better option for him at this point. The board state isn't hurting him that much, especially now he has 2 tech traders out. Those fall guys are way better than sure gambles now, and just like popping one of those for a card and $4. It's a lot of value out of those fall guys right there. So those are a really, really big include, and those were a solid include in Geist even before Tech Trader came out. So I'm no surprised to see those there. And Gerry actually overwriting that installed card and Jacksoning out. So that card probably was an Adonis. Gerry probably was hoping that he could get it online. Although I'm not sure why pump the Ichi Trace in that case 2-4. I think... Oh, I don't... No, never mind. So Gerry wouldn't have been able to res both the Adonis or whatever he just shuffled back, I should say. Could have actually have been an agenda. Actually, probably... That must have been an agenda if Gerry shuffled that back in. I expect... Even after... this was after 4 rounds of Swiss and a cut to top 8, I think Gerry would have played it that way, so... Most likely that was an agenda, and Raph was able to effectively counter that play. And yeah, Raph popping the fall guy, looking up. I see he has another crowbar in his hand. I think he pitched the levy last turn, so... and on the other side, Gerry there with an Adonis and a few pieces of ice. Raph choosing to kind of crowbar and D. So this... expecting a free access here and stealing the global food. Not what Gerry wants to see. The cards really aren't falling his way right now. And I'm shocked at the ability that Geist is able to keep HB poor. That one siphon after Raph made the siphon attempt, Gerry pretty much lost all his money, went broke in that. But you don't see many people being able to push HB around in credits like this. And even in cases like this, just install and moneying up. And in the last turn, Gerry just had to cycle his hand a little bit instead of moneying up, like I'm sure he wanted to do. Or probably to also get the agenda out of the remote, but... Raph getting the spike in. So 5 breakers. So he has 1 breaker of each type at strength 5 right now, which is pretty good. And that Victor isn't really going to help too much. I believe that's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's only 4 credits if he does want to use the Faust, but popping the crowbar is going to net Raph 2 credits instead and a card. So it's a really neat engine that Raph has, and it seems like that's pretty much it. Honestly, I know one of the problems with Geist when he first came out and with these the B&E suite is it didn't have the strength and it was missing something. So now with Tech Trader, just the 1 card coming out, Geist has his console, he has a way to get money, and he has his breakers. So you can build this entire credit engine around him now, whereas before he just was lacking parts. Oh, there we go, and there's a look at his hand. So Gerry's hand on the other side, and it was an Ash and 3 agendas and an archived memories. So pretty much anything is up for grabs there. And Gerry just really needs to focus on defending R&D. and moneying up, of course. But that Caprice could be a big deal too here. I actually would be interested to see if Gerry wants to install that Caprice in over R&D. He doesn't have a whole lot of ice. Yeah, that's true. I think Gerry does need to get something over R&D or rezzed over R&D to protect it before he can afford the Caprice in the server. But thanks to HB's ability, just install, gain some more money. Gerry's back to 5. And Raph pops the Tech Trader. Another, or the Street Peddler. A couple more really cool cards. We get the Savoir Faire there. So now Raph can essentially for free, if he's using a Cloudbreaker, install a Cloudbreaker and use a Cloudbreaker, and it nets him a card when he does that to use it. And that's going to be another pretty cool combo. Basically now, as long as Raph has the breaker in hand, he can run and be safe. He doesn't need to be worried about Gerry rezzing something that he can't answer. Raph can just, bam, drop it from his hand and continue on through. And here he pops the Fall Guy, he gets a couple more options, gets a bunch of money against the Architect. I'm curious what his response is going to be. I think that's another Crowbar in his hand. And okay, so we see a Mongoose coming into play, and that's going to be awesome. That's 3 credits to get through the Architect. A lot better than using a breaker. And that's another one of Criminals. Just came out in Kalagoda. It's been pretty well received. Oh man, and stealing another 2-pointer off the top. And Gerry's in a bad spot right now. He only has the Architect covering R&D, and he's only at 2 points. Raph has 6 and has all of his breakers and his engine pretty much out. That Tech Trader is going to continue to gain him a ton of money. It does look like Raph's Geist's deck here is starting to get low, so the levies on the table again for sure are definitely considered to be. That might not be a bad play here, but I think Raph is digging for something. I'm not sure, just solidifying that board state a little bit more, getting the same old thing. And Gerry's he's really not bad. If Gerry can cover up R&D, he's in a great spot. Really good. And Gerry's getting the Caprice installed in that scoring server as well. So the health of the scoring server is very good. That heartbeat's going strong, but Gerry needs to provide a little bit more up on R&D to stop Raph from getting in there. And I haven't seen any R&D multi-axis quite yet, although a Maker's Eye at this point wouldn't really surprise me too much.
Sorry for this mess. That's alright. I'm playing Haley.
And if Gerry can stabilize with a little bit of money, get that ice over R&D rezzed again, he's in a really good spot to put pressure on in the late game moving forward. And we're definitely in the mid game at this point. I would actually say that Raph is probably mid to end game. Gerry is also strongly suited in the mid game as far as board state, although his credit count is not where he wants it to be. And the HB ability has done a lot of work here, keeping Gerry afloat. So kind of showing the strength of that core set ID, why that's still played so much. You noticed it a lot in the early game. Gerry was able to install some ice, install his upgrades, while gaining a buck, and or at least preventing him from losing tempo in a lot of instances. And that preventing that tempo loss has allowed him to stay at least even with Geist. And Geist's economy doesn't look like it's in the best place. I guess if you just looked at the credit pool, it looked like Gerry's ahead. But the board state of Raph here really shows how quickly and easily he can gain money. I mean, like even that 3 credit Tech Trader there is worth 5 credits right now. So even just something small like that, for 1 click, he can easily go back up and capitalize on it. And by running, he, as evidenced here, he gets money just from running. So instead of losing money on a legwork run or something like that, Raph is able to end up after the run with more money than he started. And those breakers the loss of the breakers don't really mean anything with levy nowadays. So just levy everything back and get the card drawback going, and then your economy is going to be even stronger on the way through. It's kind of like the criminal prepaid voice pad deck, I guess, but it seems like it's a little bit more fun to play. And this is so we do see the Maker's Eye there after the legwork last turn. I expect we'll see that the Maker's Eye next turn. There really isn't anything stopping Raph here. I don't think there is an ice that Gerry could res that would put him at a significant advantage over R&D, or at least that would stop the Maker's Eye run from going off. And the autoscriptor is a cool include as well. I'm a little bit bummed that we're not seeing it hit the table. The other one got discarded there. You can see it in the discard pile. But having a Geist deck like this that's able to really, really keep the tempo going. Installing that first program is free, and then you can trash all of your programs later for money. It's kind of like a variation of Haley, I guess would be the most reasonable thing, except that it would go away, of course, on the unsuccessful run. So a little bit riskier, but a really cool include nonetheless in this type of Geist build. And Raph gaining a credit at the end, and allowing Gerry to score out the Vitruvius here. And I know it's off the screen, but just trust me, that's a Vitruvius there. Gerry does have an NAPD in his hand as well, so I'm not sure if we can expect Gerry to try and score that out. He might spend next turn trying to gain a little bit money, and then the turn after that score out the NAPD. If Gerry can tie this game up, he is in a really, really strong position. Gerry here is actually the higher seed, so Gerry benefits. There's one that benefits here in case of a tie. So that's not the ideal situation, but there's still a lot of time left in this game, and Gerry definitely isn't just gonna go down trying to tie. So curious to see, but. Raph putting a lot of pressure with that Maker's Eye here, and here's the Eli, so we see that being rezzed. Gerry forced back down to 1 credit, and I think that's a really, really big story. You're seeing this Titan in Hospiroroid, where they're used to just having buckets and buckets of money through Eves and Adonises and Breaker Bays, and then you have this universally panned as a terrible runner in Geist, who is beating HB at their own game here. Geist has way, way more money than the Hospiroroid player does, and Geist has not landed a Siphon, and isn't necessarily making a lot of runs, and they're definitely not free, although Geist is making money, so I guess it kind of is free. It's more of a card tax at this point. The funny thing is that this deck almost turns itself into like playing Jinteki, right? If you remember the old PE days, Jinteki would just 1,000 cuts and just try and poke at you until you didn't have any cards left. Never, or I shouldn't say never, but not as often going for the pure kill. And Geist here is just like the opposite, just willing to throw everything else away, just get to the bottom of the deck so you can go through it and do it all again. It's just interesting that you're doing it to see you do it to yourself. And Gerry contemplating a little bit what to do here, I think, in the face of the Siphon. He does have some outs. We did see the Ash and the Caprice. I think that's an Adonis, though, in the remote. And that would be a really, really big heads-up play if Gerry can force Raph to go all the way down just to res the Adonis that he can't get into this turn. Yep. So Raph goes through, gets everything out, and Gerry's able to go get his Adonis, and that's huge. He can kickstart it. It's going to be a huge kickstart to Gerry's economy. He will start his turn with $3, which is almost unheard of at this point. It is a risk. Gerry does have the NAPD. Okay, so, so Gerry's safe for another turn at least, and he can use this turn to kind of get his board state set up a little bit better, get some money off of the Adonis campaign. Hopefully ice up HQ, although we might just see an install advance with the Adonis campaign. It would leave Gerry with $3, which isn't the best. Actually, it's probably... Oh, no, we wouldn't see an install advance. That would make Gerry overwrite the Adonis. So that would be a bad play. Don't listen to me. But Raph's going in for the Maker's Eye instead of my terrible, terrible plan. So... Running in, so there was no res on that first one, as you can expect with no money, and Raph popped some stuff. And this could be it. Nope. And a whiff. Okay, so Gerry's not off the hook here. Raph's definitely still in a dominant position. I like the Corroder and the same old thing in Raph's hand, so he can continue to just assault HQ and R&D at his leisure. With those multi-axis cards in the heap and same old things. And actually, this is kind of cool. I just noticed this. Raph can same old Maker's Eye or same old Legwork, and both of those events effectively free. He gains the 2 credits from trashing the same old thing, and then the 2 credits go to the event, and it's just a 2-click run to try and see 3 cards, which is really, really strong. Gerry cashing out a little bit more on the Adonis. So, Raph's deck, this is a great engine. I hope this becomes a thing. Past store champs, I hope we can see more of this. There's a lot of other trash cards that I don't think Raph has included. I think we've seen most of his influence at this point. We have Zoo, we have the Scheherazade, which is another cool one, but another neat little part of this whole mechanic. The Levy Zoo, there's the Corroder in his hand, Street Peddlers, and that's already a pretty solid chunk of influence. I think that's, 5, 8, it's 10 or 12. So there's not other surprises left, I don't think. But Gerry's starting to get a little bit more tempo here with the Adonis campaign up and very protected. R&D is looking a little bit safer now. The Eli in play is going to make it so Raph can get in with money instead of just keep blowing through the breakers. But Raph is done with his deck for now. We'll probably see a same old Levy here pretty soon. That would make sense. I'm not sure if there's anything in Raph's hand that he's trying to hang on to, but a lot of contemplation here. And this is the first round, and it's really, really important. This is the first round of the top 8. So winning this game and winning out in the winners brackets of top 8 cannot be underestimated. You get to rest if you win out in top 8 while the lower bracket sorts itself out. So going into the finals undefeated is a really, really nice boost to have to your day. Get a little bit of rest, don't go in so stressed out, and you get to go in with the extra spring in your step since you are undefeated and you need to lose twice in order to drop it. So this is a really, really important round here. And Gerry installing and gaining some more money, as HB does. As I mentioned also as well, you see HB's ability preventing tempo loss here. Really, really important to HB's game plan, especially recently, right now, with this food coat style deck. And this is also the first Adonis that we've seen that is able to live. We haven't seen an Adonis or Eve get rezzed, no Breaker Bay grid, which is pretty interesting, actually. I'm sort of surprised that we haven't seen a Breaker Bay in this game. I wonder if Gerry just hasn't seen it yet, or if he has to play it. So not seeing that Breaker Bay is costing Gerry a ton of money, or would have cost Gerry a ton of money if he had rezzed more of those assets, but would certainly be nice to get those up without his scoring remote being taken up. And the Vikram res on the Maker's Eye run is good. That card is another Kalagoda card that came out, and it is awesome. It's like strength 6 or strength 5 or something crazy. 6 cost, and it's like what is that card? It's like a Wendigo. it's like a good Wendigo, in my opinion. Preventing a program from being used for the rest of the turn, and doing some traces for brain damage. The traces probably not affecting the Geist build as much as it would other ones, but and it does force the Vikram Res does force Raph to jack out. So certainly does its job there. R&D is no longer easy to run on. That high strength code gate on the remote or on the R&D is going to be really, really hard for Raph to get through repeatedly. And Gerry wisely icing up even further on R&D, now having 4 ice deep, including a Vikram, an Architect, and an Eli. That is not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. It is now impossible to click through, and Gerry can start really focusing on protecting HQ a little bit more and getting his agendas scored out. This turn, the Adonis is going to be done, and Gerry's gotten the full benefit from it, which he really, really needed. That cannot be understated enough. That Adonis living, and let's not forget that was off of a siphon. So Gerry prevented a... math isn't my friend right now. A 12 credit swing. Yeah, Gerry prevented a 12 credit swing by rezzing the Adonis, and then the Adonis is allowed to live, generating even more, another 12 credits for Gerry. So that's effectively a 24 credit swing that Gerry managed to counter Raph's play with. And that's really, really crucial, especially at this point in the game. Gerry needed this type of stability so he can officially move into his late to end game. And he has everything set up in the scoring remote. He has the he has the Ash, he has the Caprice, he has the agenda in his hand now, and he can really start to crank things out. As long as he doesn't suddenly get flooded, although I find that very, very unlikely since we have seen 5-6 agendas already, including the one that Gerry just installed, the NAPD Gerry installed in advanced. I expect Gerry's deck only plays 9 or 10 agendas, so we've seen over half at this point. So I wouldn't rule it. I guess I wouldn't rule it completely out that Gerry could continue to be flooded, but I think at this stage it's unlikely. As long as Gerry can keep his bank accounts up and keep pressure off. So, okay. Raph going in with another Maker's Eye. I'm curious to see another Architect res. So, Gerry's put tons into R&D. It's what? Oh, and he can't even get in there because the Mongoose can only be used once. So I suppose savoir-faire is a reasonable thing here, depending on what...
Okay. Oh, you'll let them both fire?
No, this one. Both for silver.
Okay, so interesting. Raph here actually allowing the Architect to fire. I don't think he expected another sentry, and I think Raph is trying to prevent I actually don't know why he lets the Architect fire here. It's only 3 credits. I'm not sure. I actually think this is a misplay here. I don't necessarily agree with Raph allowing the Architect to fire here, because he's not going to continue. I don't think he doesn't have the money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So that was which card? Do you remember, that you stole from?
Maybe I don't know. I don't think allowing Gerry to see what the top 5 cards of his deck are here. I don't think that is a wise decision, especially at this stage in the game. Raph, I think he was better off just trying to draw and gain a little bit of money. Gerry isn't threatening the win with the single advanced agenda. We haven't seen any biotic labors here to indicate that Gerry would be trying to bluff out an NAPD to biotic the global for the win, the global food. So I really don't agree with that play here. Ref jacking out after the architect and running the newly installed remote that Gerry had, which I believe was an Adonis. Oh, it's a Jackson. Okay, and not trashing the Jackson. Interesting. So, I would love to know the thought process behind that. But Raph scoring out, or excuse me, Gerry score advance out the NAPD, and we have a tied game. Gerry has the Vitruvius in hand. Oh man, so time was called. I just heard in the in-game audio. So Gerry gets to finish his turn. Raph takes his turn, and that's game. So, yeah, Raph here is just he's going to try and look for any agenda here to squeak out the win. But, so Gerry isn't going to get another chance to try and score out that Vitruvius that's in his hand, which really, really hurts. If Raph can try and maybe swing a legwork here, or maybe hit something off R&D, but I think R&D is a little bit too expensive for him to try and get to right now. HQ is really, really his best bet. I see a Siphon that's not going to help. I don't know if Raph has a legwork in his discard pile that he can use. He's looking for options right now. So Gerry has this game if he gets, I guess, 2 more turns technically to install it and go out. I think Gerry not having money in early game really, really set him back. If Gerry's able to get one of these Adonis or Eve, if he can get one of those up and get all of the money off of it, even without the breaker bays, I think Gerry's in a much better spot for a majority of this game. He can res that ice a little bit earlier, protect his stuff a little bit more. Letting the trace fire. But this Geist deck, I don't want to shortchange that. This is an ID that everybody thought was garbage, or at least most people thought was garbage. So Geist not only placing high in the Swiss rounds of the Store Champ, but being able to tie HB in top 8 at a really high level tournament here, that's amazing. Just from Tech Trader, oh, not just from Tech Trader, but Tech Trader coming out in business first, I believe, has made Geist from a maybe like C tier runner, maybe to a high B, even A tier, with how he was able to put all this pressure on HB. And I would love to see more videos and more of this Geist. So I do hope we get to see that. Raph going in to HQ one last time. He does have the chance. He has a 1 out of 5 here to snatch the game away from Gerry. Let's see if he can do it. It all comes down to this. Last access for the game. And the Ichi seals the deal. Gerry moves on further into the winner's bracket against John D. There's a handshake that seals it. Thank you very much for watching. I got a lot more Store Championship action coming up. Catch you next time.